The bed was cold, not just cool sheets on a summer night cold. This was a deep, for 3 years. Is there a word for the woman who is married but utterly profoundly alone? If there is, I don't know it. I only know the feeling. It tastes like stale water and smells like a room no one has truly lived in for months. 28. I was 28 years old, and my life felt like a flat line on a heart monitor. A steady, meaningless beep. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat alone, sleep alone. The endless, grinding cycle of existence without life. Ethan. Ethan was a man married to his work, to his projects, to his company, to the endless string of deadlines that were always more urgent, more demanding, more alive than his own wife. I was just a fixture in his life, a piece of furniture, a quiet, unassuming shadow that followed him without complaint. I'd stopped reminding him to take care of himself. I'd stopped crying on anniversaries he forgot. I had accepted it all, hadn't I? This was my life, settled, done. All I had asked for, all I had begged the universe for, was a child, a tiny human to pour all this silent, unused love into. Someone to hold, to care for, to make this hollow house feel like a home. But even that, the most basic, primal wish, Ethan never had the time. 3 years of trying, 3 years of thermometers and scheduled intimacy that felt more like a business transaction. 3 years of my quiet suggestions. Maybe we should get checked out. Together? And his response, always the same, delivered while scrolling through emails on his phone. I'm just too swamped right now, Hazel. Next month, I promise. But next month never came. The clock on the nightstand glowed. 11:57 p.m. Another night staring into the abyss. Ethan was in Tokyo. Or was it Kyoto? It didn't matter. His presence or absence had become functionally the same. But tonight was different. A strange, dangerous energy was fizzing under my skin. A rebellion, a desperate, primal scream building in my throat. How long had it been since I went out? Since I heard a man's voice say my name with something other than weary familiarity. Since a hand touched my arm not by accident, but with intent. Was I already old? Had I withered into some sad, sexless matron at 28? No. I am young. I have desires. I have needs that have been starved for so long they've become a physical ache in my chest. Why was I burying myself alive in this sterile, loveless tomb of a marriage? Why? Without another thought, I threw on a thin coat over my silk pajamas, my bare feet slipping into the first pair of shoes I could find. I walked out of the apartment, the cold, damp Portland air hitting me like a slap. I raised my hand, and the headlights of an Uber sliced through the darkness, pulling up to the curb like a getaway car. The driver, a man with kind, tired eyes, smiled at me in the rearview mirror. Where we headed tonight, my mind was a blank, a complete void. I don't know yet, I stammered, feeling a blush of shame creep up my neck. Just drive. He chuckled softly, a low, rumbling sound. One of those nights. Heartbreak? No, I said, a little too quickly. Then, softer. Maybe you could call it that. I'm too old for heartbreak. Now, only losing money makes me sad. Tell me about it, he sighed, pulling away from the curb and into the empty, rain-slicked streets. You're right. You only get to have fun before you're married. The moment you put a ring on it, the first thought you have every morning is, how am I gonna make more money today? It's always money, money, money. You sound pessimistic, I observed, watching the neon lights of the city blur into watercolor streaks on the window. Driving this late, You must be making decent money. Got a long-haul fare to the airport earlier, so it's not too bad, he admitted. Was about to head home. Wife won't sleep until I'm back. Gotta get home to her. Family over everything, you know. He glanced at me again. You sure you don't have a destination in mind? Here, I said suddenly. Stop here. You should go home to your wife. I can't just leave you here. I'll take you wherever you need to go. A reckless thought took hold. Okay, then, take me somewhere I can spend some money. You work so hard to earn it. You have to find a place to spend it, right? He grinned. I know just the place. There's a cocktail bar near here, the Velvet Hour. It's got that classy, low-light vibe, full of handsome men and beautiful women. You'll fit right in. I just nodded, my heart hammering against my ribs. For the first time, I was stepping into a bar alone. It wasn't the loud, sticky-floored place I'd imagined. The Velvet Hour was hushed, intimate. A lone saxophone wept a bluesy tune from hidden speakers. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and aged whiskey. I found an empty stool at the far end of the bar, a dark corner where I could observe. A new day had just begun. Since marrying Ethan, I'd never been out this late. My life was a predictable loop. Work, TV, bed. Ethan would come home long after I was asleep, shower, and then scroll on his phone until he passed out. Sometimes I felt so invisible. I wondered if I'd wake up and find my hand could pass right through him. Sitting here, surrounded by couples murmuring to each other, their hands intertwined, their eyes locked. I felt a loneliness so sharp it was a physical pain. It was a catalyst. It ignited something wild and feral inside me. I caught the bartender's eye. Bring me a bottle, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Your best Cabernet. He gave me a look, a quick, curious glance, but nodded and turned away. I watched the room, watching other people be in love when you are starving, for it is a special kind of torture. A quiet smile touched my lips. Or maybe it's just interesting research. The bartender returned, presenting the bottle like a jewel. He uncorked it with a soft pop, poured a small amount into a glass, and slid it toward me. I nodded my thanks, lifted the glass, and took a sip. The rich, bitter taste of the wine was a shock to my system, an electric jolt of pleasure and rebellion. I tilted my head back and finished the glass in one long swallow. As I reached for the bottle to pour another, a hand gently took it from me. Allow me. The voice was low, smooth as velvet. I looked up. He was young, maybe my age, maybe a little younger, tall, with dark hair that fell over his forehead and eyes that seemed to see right through me. He was, objectively, beautiful. He poured the deep red liquid into my glass without waiting for an answer. A slow, confident smile played on his lips. I smiled back, a real smile, and lifted the glass. Thank you. I took a small, deliberate sip. If you don't mind, I said, gesturing to the empty stool beside me. You can sit here with me. He didn't hesitate. He pulled out the stool and sat down, his presence immediately filling the space. You look a little young to be ordering me around, don't you think? I teased, my voice laced with a bravado I didn't feel. I think age is irrelevant in a place like this, he replied, his gaze unwavering. We're here because fate brought us here. Why waste time on trivial details like age when we could be nurturing this? Connection, everything has its order. Seniority, respect. I was testing him, pushing him. I'm not so sure you're older than me, he countered smoothly. So I think we should stick to the conventional way. A man is a man. Let a woman call him by his name. It gives him strength. What kind of rule is that? Rules are made by people, he said with a wink. And tonight, I'm making the rules. Can I buy you a drink? No, I'm drinking my own. Then let me me join you. Drinking alone is a sad state of affairs. You need someone to clink glasses with. That sound. It has its own kind of magic, don't you think? I paused, studying him. Fine, we'll drink together. But is some girlfriend of yours going to show up and scratch my eyes out? If I had someone, I wouldn't be here talking to you. And if you had someone, you wouldn't be here drinking alone. I'd say we're two lonely souls who found each other in the night. There's something beautiful about that, isn't there? I burst out laughing, a genuine, unburdened laugh that felt foreign in my own throat. He was interesting. We talked as we drank. The conversation flowed easily, weaving from trivial topics to deeper confessions. My tolerance for alcohol was usually high, but next to him, I was an amateur. The room was starting to spin gently. The edges of things were becoming soft. He draped an arm casually over my shoulder, pulling me slightly closer. His touch was electric. "Can I at least know your name?" he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "What's the point? We're just ships in the night, passing by. Isn't that more romantic?" I looked at him, my vision blurring slightly. "Tonight, I just want to get really, really drunk. Can you get drunk with me?" My voice was a low, sultry whisper I didn't recognize. "I am at your service." "Beautiful," he said, his eyes darkening. He signaled the bartender for another bottle. The space between us shrank to nothing. The alcohol was a fire in my veins, burning away years of inhibition and loneliness. I felt bold. I felt reckless. By the time the second bottle was nearly empty, I couldn't stand on my own. I slumped forward, my head resting on the cool, smooth wood of the bar. "Let me take you home," he offered, his voice a gentle rumble. "No," I mumbled into the bar. "I don't want to go home tonight." I lifted my head, my eyes finding his in the dim light. "I want a one-night stand with you. Is that okay? Tomorrow, we go our separate ways. No debt, no names, strangers again." He looked at me for a long moment, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "You're really drunk. But if that's what will make you happy, then I am more than willing to serve." He paid the bill, then gently helped me to my feet, his arm securely around my waist. He led me out into the cool night air and toward a sleek, black Audi parked down the street. He opened the passenger door, carefully helping me inside before getting into the driver's seat. We drove in silence to a hotel just a few blocks away. As we stood in the elevator, ascending to one of the upper floors, a wave of panic and regret washed over me. What was I doing? I was about to sleep with a man whose name I didn't even know. I, who had turned down dozens of men before I met Ethan, who had never given a man so much as a second glance. But then I thought of Ethan, thousands of miles away. Was he sleeping alone? Or was he wrapped in the arms of another woman? Why was I expected to keep myself pure, to guard my fidelity like a sacred treasure, when my own marriage was a barren wasteland? I wanted this. I needed this rebellion. The wine was still singing in my blood, making me numb and brave. I closed my eyes, letting him guide me down the plushly carpeted hallway and into a luxurious room. This is a one-time thing, I told myself. A secret pleasure. I was the one who made the first move. I turned to him and undid the buttons of my coat, letting it fall to the floor. Then, I reached for the hem of the silk nightdress beneath it. He was an incredible lover. He brought me to life in ways I didn't know were possible, with a passion and an attention that was completely intoxicating. It was a feeling Ethan had never given me. That night of sinful, illicit pleasure was dizzying. I told myself that if men were allowed their transgressions, then women had every right to seek their own pleasure too. I fell asleep wrapped in his arms, drunk on wine, on rebellion, and on the dizzying heights of physical sensation I had been denied for so long. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through a gap in the heavy curtains. It took me a moment to remember where I was. I was alone. He was gone. On the nightstand, beside an empty glass of water, was a neat stack of $100 bills, and next to it, a crisp, white business card. Julian Croft, CEO, Croft Innovations. A rich, arrogant prick. I picked up the card, the sharp edges digging into my palm. My first instinct was to tear it into 1,000 pieces, to throw it and the money in the trash. But I hesitated. I tucked the card into the small pocket of my coat. A secret souvenir, a piece of evidence from a crime only I knew I had committed. I pulled back the curtains. The city below was already alive, bustling with morning traffic, bathed in a golden Sunday light. It was a world away from the silent intimacy of the hotel room. I dressed quickly, my hands trembling slightly. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I was terrified of running into someone I knew. I pulled a scarf from my coat pocket and wrapped it around the lower half of my face, a flimsy disguise. I walked out of the hotel like a thief, my head down, my pace quick. I didn't run, I fled. I walked along the sun-drenched sidewalk, the air still crisp and cool. The sweet, heavy scent of late-blooming jasmine hung in the air, and for a moment, my mind felt clear. The haze of alcohol was gone. A small, hysterical laugh escaped my lips. My night of madness. It would be my secret, an experience just for me. Today was Sunday. I decided I would go to the grocery store, buy some nice food, and go home. I would cook a feast and invite my best friends over. It had been too long. My life had become so small, revolving only around work and the empty house. I needed to reconnect. I needed to feel like myself again. I called Chloe first. Hey, I was thinking of having a little get-together at my place for lunch. You free? Oh, Hazel, I'd love to, but I can't today. Chloe's voice was full of genuine regret. Liam is so little, I can't find a sitter on a Sunday. And Mark's home, you know how it is. We try to have our family day. Maybe some other time. Of course. Another time. Disappointed, I called Sarah, my friend since high school. Sarah, come over for lunch. My place. Just me. I'm so bored. Oh, honey, I wish. It's Sunday. My husband would kill me if I bailed on the one day we have together. He'd probably kick me out. She laughed, but there was a truth to it. How about coffee tomorrow? We could catch up. Bring your husband and your daughter. The more the merrier. I'm all alone here. No way, she said immediately. On Sundays, all my husband wants to do is sleep in. And little Amy has a bit of a fever. We're not going anywhere. I'm so sorry. And just like that, my two best friends were unavailable, tied to the lives I secretly envied and resented. Husbands, children. I slumped onto my sofa, the silence of the apartment deafening. That's the true definition of loneliness, isn't it? When you have 1,000 contacts in your phone, but not a single person you can call to sit with you when you're feeling lost. I guess it's just me and my phone again. Just then, it rang. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see. Ethan. We hadn't spoken in a week. We never had much to say. Our careers were in different worlds, so we couldn't talk about work. We had no children to bond over. We were long past the point of calling just to ask, "Have you eaten?" So, when his name appeared, a jolt of pure, undiluted guilt shot through me. I felt like a criminal. Well, I answered, my voice dripping with a sarcasm I hoped would cover my fear. Did an earthquake hit or something? What's the special occasion for you to call your wife? Actually, yeah. His voice was tired, distant. There was a tremor here in Tokyo. It's raining hard now. How's work? I asked. My script of wifely duties kicking in. Good. Actually, I'm flying back in 2 days. Finished up ahead of schedule. Oh, that's great, I stammered, my heart sinking. So soon? Do you think you could pick me up from the airport? Tuesday evening, around 6 p.m. Yeah, of course, I'll be there. Okay, you should get some rest. I've got a little more work to wrap up here. He hung up. I dropped the phone onto the sofa and lay back, my body feeling heavy and weak. He was coming home. I had to clean the house, erase the last 24 hours. I stood up and started with the living room. A thin layer of dust covered everything. The dining table hadn't been used in weeks. The kitchen was cold, sterile. I hadn't cooked in a month. Cleaning. This was my great excitement for the weekend. As I scrubbed and dusted, my mind kept drifting back to the night before, to Julian. The memory of his touch, the intensity in his eyes, made a strange, guilty heat rise in me. It was a purely physical thing, I told myself. Lust, nothing more. He didn't even know my full name. We would never see each other again. I should throw his card away, but I didn't. I kept cleaning, my thoughts a tangled mess. Maybe everyone needs a secret. A little something they keep locked away. Something that's only theirs. Live with it, die with it. There's a strange thrill in that, isn't there? A sharp knock on the front door startled me. It was past noon. Who could possibly be visiting me now? I opened the door to a young delivery man holding a massive, extravagant bouquet of white lilies and deep red roses. Delivery for Hazel, he said, holding out a clipboard. Just need a signature here. My blood ran cold. I glanced at the sender's name on the form. Julian Croft. How could he know where I live? How dare he do something so reckless, so dangerous? I can't accept this, I whispered, my voice shaking. I don't know the sender. Oh, come on, lady, the kid pleaded. It's a long drive back. They'll dock my pay if I return it. Just take them, they're beautiful. He didn't even wait for a signature. He thrust the bouquet into my arms, said, "Have a good one," and practically ran back to his van, as if he was afraid I'd chase him down. I stood there, frozen, clutching the flowers. I scanned the street, my heart pounding. Was he watching me right now? What would happen if Ethan came home and saw this? I didn't want to lose my marriage over this. Not like this. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed the number from the business card. He picked up on the second ring. Croft. His voice was clipped. Professional. Cold. "It's me," I said, my voice a furious whisper. "Why are you following me? I told you, no contact, no calls. I have a family. I don't want you ruining my life." "My apologies," he said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice. "But you're the one who called me. The flowers were just a thank you for the wonderful time we shared, nothing more. And I didn't follow you." "You're a liar," I hissed, my knuckles white as I gripped the phone. "If you didn't follow me, how did you know my address?" "That was easy. I gave a delivery guy $100 to follow you home this morning and then send the flowers. Simple. If you don't like them, just give me your address and I'll come pick them up." "You're insane," I screamed. "Stay the hell away from me. Don't you ever show your face to me again." "You know," he said, his voice dropping to that low, intimate tone from the bar. "You've already started calling me you. Don't change that. Now, are you going to tell me your name?" "Go to hell, you son of a bitch." I hung up, my entire body trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. A horrifying thought crept into my mind. What if he took pictures, videos? What if he was one of those sick, manipulative deviants who would use this to blackmail me, to turn me into his personal plaything, my life? My quiet, stable, albeit lonely, life. What if it was about to be shattered? My phone buzzed with a text from him. Don't worry, I'll just admire you from a distance. I would never interfere with your private life. My blood turned to ice. This man wasn't going to just disappear. This had to end. Now. 2 days until Ethan was home. I had to fix this. I typed a message with shaking fingers. Meet me. I want to talk to you, face to face. His reply came instantly. Okay. The coffee shop near the bar from last night. I'm already here. I threw on the first decent clothes I could find and called another Uber. All the way there, I rehearsed the scathing, brutal words I would unleash on him. I would end this pervert, this monster who dared to threaten my life. He was going to pay. I tried to calm my breathing, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. How did I let myself get into something so messy, so dangerous? I arrived at the coffee shop, scanning the tables for a man sitting alone. It was dark in the bar, and I'd been drunk. I couldn't remember his face clearly, only that he was tall, handsome. Hazel, over here. I turned. It was him, sitting at a corner table, dressed in an impeccably tailored gray suit. He waved me over, but he wasn't alone. He was sitting with 2 other people. My heart stopped. A new, more potent fear seized me. Was this a trap? Had he planned this all along? But I was already here. Running now would only look more suspicious. I took a deep breath and walked hesitantly toward the table. Sitting with Julian was a distinguished-looking man in his late 40s and a beautiful, stylish young woman. Marcus, I'd like you to meet someone, Julian said cheerfully as I approached, his eyes twinkling with mischief. This is my friend Hazel. Hazel, this is Marcus Thorne, CEO of HKT Technologies, and this is his executive assistant, Bella. Hello, Marcus. Bella, I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's a pleasure to meet you, Hazel, Marcus said, extending a hand. His grip was firm. A pleasure. I don't believe we've met. What field are you in? My mind raced. I had to play along. I work in communications and marketing, I said, finding my professional footing. Really? Do you do any content marketing strategy? He asked. His interest piqued. My company is in desperate need of a strong lead in that area. I have about 5 years of experience in that field. Actually, I replied, surprised at how easily the words came. Well, give me your number, he said, impressed. You should come by the office sometime. We're always looking for talent. I'd love to discuss a potential collaboration. Bella, the assistant, spoke up softly. Yes, please give me your contact info. Let me know when you might be free to come by and I'll arrange a meeting. I recited my number, and as she wrote it down, I snuck a glance at Julian. He was watching me with a look of cool amusement, as if this was all part of his grand plan. A small part of me began to relax. Maybe this wasn't a blackmail attempt, but what was it? Why orchestrate this bizarre, high-stakes job interview? This man was an enigma, and he terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. He had been observing my every move, every subtle shift in my expression. He found this whole situation interesting. A woman who was both fiercely independent and deeply vulnerable. He'd slept with many women, but I was the first one who had left such a profound impression. He was drawn to my witty defiance, my nervous energy, even my clumsy attempts to insult him. Was it love at first sight? Of course not. But there was something about me that made him want to see me again. Hazel, have you had lunch yet? Marcus asked, his voice booming pleasantly and pulling me from my thoughts. We were about to order. Join us. We can talk business. Yes, let's all eat, Julian interjected. And after we're done with work talk, Maybe a little wine? A little bit wouldn't hurt, Marcus agreed, turning to me. Hazel, you'll have a glass with us, to loosen up, get those rosy cheeks. I don't really drink, I stammered. Julian chuckled. Oh, she can handle a bottle all by herself, Marcus. Their eyes were on us. Marcus smiled. You two make a handsome couple. When's the wedding? I'm married, I blurted out, the words escaping like a gunshot. The table fell silent. Everyone stared at me, my over-the-top reaction hanging in the air. We're just friends, Julian said smoothly, a playful glint in his eye as he winked at me. Very good friends. I forced a laugh, trying to recover from my blunder, but it was too late. My reaction had screamed that there was something more between us. Thankfully, no one pressed the issue. The meal started off awkwardly, but as we talked more about work, I found my confidence. I spoke passionately about my field, about my ideas, about my dream of one day opening my own communications firm. This was my territory. Here, I was in control. After a while, Marcus and Bella made their excuses and left, a little too conveniently, leaving me alone with Julian. The moment they were gone, my anger returned, hot and sharp. I'm warning you, I hissed, my voice low and dangerous. Never, ever interfere in my private life again. I am a married woman. What happened the other night? It was a mistake, an accident. I never want to see you again. You don't have to be so hostile, he said, his calm demeanor infuriating me. Honestly, Hazel, I just want to be your friend. Friends? I don't need a friend like you, I snapped, my voice rising. A few people at nearby tables turned to look. I lowered my voice. No friends, ever. Goodbye. You know, I'm not a monster, he said quietly, his eyes serious for the first time. And I'm not the kind of asshole you think I am. My name is Julian Croft. I don't care who you are. Just stay out of my life. I stood up abruptly and walked out, not looking back. I needed to get away from him, from this place, from the mess I had created. The shame and regret of that one impulsive night were crashing down on me, threatening to drown me. I was terrified that it was going to cost me everything. Julian watched me go, a slow smile spreading across his face. My words didn't hurt him. On the contrary, they thrilled him. This woman, she had a fire in her that captivated him. It was a shame she was already married. Life had a cruel sense of humor. All the women who threw themselves at him bored him to tears. Yet the one who pushed him away was the one he couldn't stop thinking about. But he wasn't the type to destroy a marriage. He would respect her life, but he still wanted to be her friend, her real friend. He sent me a text. I promise. I just want to be your friend. In a completely platonic way. I didn't reply. My terse, angry text message made Julian laugh. He had never stepped into my life to begin with, so how could he step out of it? To him, a one-night stand was a simple transaction, a basic biological need. He'd often paid for such encounters, a clean, straightforward exchange. Even with me, he'd left money on the nightstand out of sheer habit, a gesture that now seemed crude and insulting in hindsight. But there was something about my feigned indifference, my prickly defensiveness, that fascinated him. It was a challenge. It was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Still sitting here all by your lonesome, handsome. Julian looked up, startled from his thoughts. It was Bella, Marcus's assistant. Bella, he said, a polite smile instantly forming. Where's your boss? Marcus went home. It's Sunday. Even CEOs need a day off. But what about your beautiful date? I thought for sure you two had something special going on. What is this? Are you a psychologist now? Diagnosing people's love lives? He teased. So you admit it. You do have feelings for her, she said, her tone playful but her eyes sharp. "You're getting sharper every day, aren't you? Careful, or you'll start reading my mind," he quipped. "I wouldn't dare read the mind of the great Julian Croft," she said, her voice dropping. "I just say what I see. Are you free? Let's get out of the city. I need to breathe some fresh air. This whole week has been suffocating." "You know what? That's a good idea," he said, suddenly decisive. "I need a change of scenery before I dive back into the fight." He settled the bill, and soon they were in his Audi, heading out of Portland toward the sprawling green of the countryside. He owned a small farm out there, a rustic retreat he'd bought a few years ago. It was his sanctuary, the one place he could go to recalibrate, to find his balance amidst the chaos of his life. Julian and Marcus were old business partners, friends who shared a passion for technology, aesthetics, and a similar philosophy on life. Before Marcus got married, they would spend weekends hiking the treacherous trails of the Pacific Northwest. But marriage had tamed Marcus, and Julian's adventures became less frequent. The farm was his substitute, a way to stay grounded. He knew Bella through work. She was sharp, beautiful, and ambitious, qualities he admired but didn't necessarily desire in a partner. Yet, Bella was undeniably drawn to him. She made excuses to be near him, her professional admiration thinly veiling a deeper attraction. Everyone in their circle assumed they would end up together, a power couple, the perfect match. He sometimes took her to the farm for a weekend, and the few staff there naturally assumed she was his fiancée. But Julian felt nothing for her. Not really. He didn't like women who were too smart, too ambitious. He found them exhausting. He preferred women who were softer, a little more vulnerable, perhaps even a bit naive. But he never rejected Bella's advances. He was always warm, attentive, even taking her on short trips. He never defined their relationship, and Bella saw this ambiguity not as a lack of interest, but as an opportunity, a challenge. She believed that being with Julian was her ticket to a life of comfort and happiness. The age gap between them, he was a good decade older, didn't bother her. In her world, a wealthy, successful husband was worth the trade-off. You couldn't have a rich young man unless he was born into it. Julian had built his empire from scratch, and the years it took were part of the price. From the moment she met him, she was determined to win him. His cool, sometimes ruthless, demeanor only made him more attractive. There were times she felt like she was failing, that he would never truly let her in. But just when she was about to give up hope, he would do something, a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, that would rekindle the flame. Even they didn't quite understand what their relationship was. It was a strange dance of convenience and unspoken desires. They slept together, but they rarely talked. They traveled together, but they never shared their deepest secrets. Bella tried, but there was always an invisible wall between them. When they arrived at the farm, the first thing Julian did was collapse onto the bed in the master bedroom. The night with me, a night of almost no sleep, had finally caught up with him. Watching him sleep so soundly, Bella felt a familiar pang of disappointment. She had followed him all the way out here just to watch him sleep. Meanwhile, I had made it back to my empty apartment. The anxiety had subsided, replaced by a dull, throbbing exhaustion. I had to admit, Julian was interesting, captivating, even. Not the monster I had painted him to be. His charm, his confidence, his almost aristocratic air, it was all incredibly attractive. And after a night of such raw intimacy, it's hard not to feel a strange, primal connection to someone. If I weren't married, would I let him pursue me, or would I be the one doing the pursuing? There was a magnetic pull to him that I found both thrilling and terrifying. My mouth said, "Stay out of my life," but a secret, traitorous part of my heart whispered that being friends with a man like Julian Croft wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. These conflicting thoughts tumbled around in my head, a chaotic storm of guilt and desire, until they finally lulled me into a deep, dreamless sleep. I dreamt I was with him again. The dream was vivid, filled with the same intoxicating sensations from our night together. It was more than just sex. It was the feeling of being held, of being protected, a feeling I hadn't realized I was so starved for. I woke with a start. It was late, the city lights twinkling outside my window. The air was still, and the faint scent of jasmine drifted in, creating a mood that was both romantic and haunting. It was past midnight. I had slept the entire afternoon and evening away. My phone buzzed. A text message. "Are you asleep, beautiful? I can't sleep. Can we talk for a bit?" It was Julian. I scowled at the screen. "I'm asleep," I typed back, my tone deliberately hostile. "If you text me again, I'm blocking your number. Is it because you're afraid your husband will find out?" His reply came instantly. "I know he's not home. If he were, you wouldn't have gone out like you did the other night." My fingers froze over the keyboard. He was right. He's coming home the day after tomorrow. "Don't text me like this again, or I swear I will block you." "Okay, that's 2 days from now," he wrote back. "But tomorrow night, have dinner with me? After you finish work? No, in your dreams. Don't text me again. I'm going to sleep. I'll be waiting for you at Minerva's buffet. I won't leave until you show up. Then you'll be waiting there alone. Goodbye forever." I tossed the phone aside, but a smile touched my lips. I knew he was serious. He would wait. And a treacherous part of me knew, with absolute certainty, that I would go. His persistence, his understanding of my loneliness. It was a potent combination. He wasn't a sleazebag, not really. But he wasn't a saint either. And as much as I hated to admit it, Lone was still there, sleeping in his bed at the farm, while he was lying awake, texting a married woman he'd known for less than 48 hours. The next evening, after work, I drove home to the cavernous, empty apartment. The kitchen was cold and dark. Ethan would be home tomorrow, but even with him here, the house would feel just as cold. He'd rest for a few days, and then the cycle would begin again. The endless projects, the late nights, the emotional distance that had become a permanent resident in our home. I would once again be the lonely shadow in a house that didn't feel like a home. It was just past 8. The early autumn air was starting to carry a chill. The street outside was quiet, the scent of jasmine, a constant, lonely companion. If only there was someone to talk to. I had tried calling Ethan a few times, but he was busy, wrapping things up before his flight. Our calls never lasted more than 5 minutes anyway. What was there to say? Our marriage was so bland. They say it's a blessing to marry a quiet man, but it's not. Sometimes you need someone to nag you, to complain, to argue with you. It's a way of feeling seen, of knowing you exist in their world, even if it's just as an annoyance. I never got that from Ethan. I could be seething with anger, crying my eyes out, and he wouldn't even notice. To him, a woman's anger was a brief storm that would pass on its own. He never tried to comfort me, never tried to explain himself. He just waited for it to be over. I flicked through the channels on TV, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. Time was crawling. 8:30 p.m. My thoughts drifted to Julian's invitation. He's probably gone by now, I thought. No one would wait for hours alone in a restaurant. I hadn't eaten dinner yet. A pang of hunger reminded me of my empty stomach. Cooking seemed like a monumental effort. Well, I reasoned with myself, I could just go there. If he's still there, at least someone will pay for my dinner. If he's not, It'll just confirm what a fake, predictable man he is. I drove to Minerva's buffet, not allowing myself to hope he'd still be there. I chose a discreet table in a quiet corner and sat down. A waiter approached me. "Excuse me, miss. The gentleman over there invites you to join him." I looked in the direction he was pointing. My heart skipped a beat. Julian was sitting there, a glass of wine in his hand. He saw me looking and raised his glass in a silent toast, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Thank you," I told the waiter, "but I'm fine here. Can I just get the grill menu, please?" The waiter left. I refused to look at Julian, pretending to be engrossed in my phone. A moment later, he was sliding into the chair opposite me. "So, you came after all." "You're not welcome here," I said without looking up. "Well then, let me sit with you so you're not so bored. A woman as beautiful as you shouldn't be sitting alone. It's a waste." "That's not your business." "Of course not," he conceded smoothly. "It's not my business. It's our business. And I'm telling you again, for the last time, I am a married woman. I love my husband very much, and I have no intention of getting a divorce. You were a momentary pleasure, like a tissue. You use it once, then you throw it in the trash. Why are you so hung up on it?" "You don't have to be so harsh," he said, his smile faltering slightly. "Am I really that terrible in your eyes?" "You're nothing in my eyes. You're a man I passed on the street. So please, stop bothering me, okay?" He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "If that's what you want. But I just want to be your friend. A real friend. I don't know why, but I feel this strong urge to be friends with you." "Friends with me? Or do you just want to get in my pants again?" I shot back, my voice laced with venom. "You men are all the same. Your words are always so sweet. But in the end, all you want is to take off a woman's underwear." "That's not my goal," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I genuinely want to be your friend. That night, it doesn't mean anything. It was a fleeting pleasure, like you said. It's gone. But feelings, friendship, that can last forever. I thought after sleeping together, we could have a pure, platonic friendship. Are you that naive? Or are you just pretending to be naive to trick me? I'm sorry, but I'm not some teenage girl you can manipulate." "I think you're overreacting," he said, a hint of frustration in his voice. "You were the one who initiated things with me, not the other way around. Yet you keep talking as if I seduced you, as if I tricked you. That doesn't seem very fair to me, does it?" "It was a shameful mistake," I retorted, my cheeks burning, "and I am trying to fix it. You value our night together that much. You're not just trying to fix a mistake. You're being greedy. You're afraid I'll ruin your happy family. So you're putting up all these defenses, when I haven't done anything to threaten you. All I've done is express a very decent, very respectable desire to be your friend. I even introduced you to Marcus, to business connections that could help you. Is that the act of a man who only wants to use you for sex?" He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I lived in the States for 10 years, Hazel. To me, sex is not a big deal. Maybe not to you, but to me, it's a huge deal. It was a mistake that I will never repeat in my life. You're right. You shouldn't repeat it. But it was also destiny that brought us together. And maybe, just maybe, it was meant to bring us together as friends." He paused, his gaze softening. "Look, you're hungry. I've been talking too much. What do you want to eat? I'll order." "I'm not hungry anymore," I said, my appetite gone. "Looking at you makes me lose my will to eat. Thanks for the conversation. I'm leaving." I stood up and walked away, leaving him sitting there, stunned. His logical, modern way of thinking clashed so violently with my traditional, guilt-ridden values. But his words had struck a chord. He wasn't wrong. I was the one who had initiated it. I was afraid, and he had tried to help me. The next afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Bella. She said Marcus wanted to meet with me to discuss the collaboration. This was a fantastic opportunity, a chance to advance my career. More work was better than sitting at home with my stagnant salary. It wasn't a struggle, but it wasn't abundant either. I had to seize any chance I could get to grow. When I arrived at the meeting place, a high-end restaurant, I saw that Julian was there too, along with Bella and Marcus. A flicker of annoyance went through me, but I suppressed it and took a seat next to Marcus. "Hazel, welcome," Marcus said warmly. "I wanted to invite you to lunch and propose a partnership. We have a new project launching, and we need a strong communications lead. I'd like to bring you on board. If this project is a success, I want to offer you the position of Director of Communications for HKT." My breath caught in my throat. This was a dream come true. HKT was one of the biggest tech companies in the country. This was my chance. Thank you, Marcus, I managed to say. "Thank you for your trust. I'll do my best to achieve the best possible results. I'm thrilled to work with you all." "Excellent," he beamed. "We're putting all our capital and our future into this, Hazel," Julian added, speaking for the first time. His tone was serious, professional. "I've heard you're an expert in this field, so I hope you'll dedicate your time and effort to making this a success." "I'm not an expert, but I will do my best to complete the task," I replied formally. "All right, no more formalities," Marcus declared. "From tomorrow, Bella will be your main point of contact. She'll provide you with the basic project information. I want a detailed communications and marketing plan from you as soon as possible. But for now, let's eat." Lunch was surprisingly pleasant. Everyone made an effort to be friendly, to bridge the professional gap. I knew this was the beginning of a crucial period in my career. This was my chance to finally make a name for myself. Julian was surprisingly distant and professional throughout the meal. He barely spoke to me directly, but I would occasionally catch him looking at me. When our eyes met, he would give me a small, conspiratorial smile and a wink. It was our secret, a silent acknowledgement of the strange, tangled way our lives had collided. Bella watched us both like a hawk. She noticed the subtle glances, the charged silence between us. She seemed surprised by my uncharacteristic awkwardness in Julian's presence. A suspicion began to form in her mind. Their relationship wasn't just a simple friendship, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Still, the way Julian looked at me, it was the way a man in love looks at a woman, filled her with a quiet, simmering unease. After lunch, Bella asked me to stay behind, to go over some initial details. Once we were alone, she tried to probe. "You and Julian seem very close," she began casually. "Have you known each other long?" "No," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "We only just met." "Really? Because he talks about you a lot. He's the one who convinced Marcus to hire you for this project." "I thought you must be more than just new acquaintances." "We're really just new acquaintances," I reiterated. "And Bella, you seem very interested in Julian. You should be careful. That guy. He gives me serious playboy vibes." "Oh, I was just curious about you," she said with a forced smile. We parted ways, but I knew my answers hadn't convinced her. In fact, they had probably made her more suspicious. I had a feeling that working with Julian was going to be far more complicated than I ever imagined. After the meeting, I rushed to the airport to pick up Ethan. It took forever to find him in the bustling arrivals hall. He looked exhausted, thinner, the stress of his work etched onto his face. The moment he got into the car, he reclined the seat and fell into a deep sleep. When we were almost home, I gently woke him. I suggested we stop for dinner, but all he wanted was to go home and sleep. For the past month, he said, all he'd craved was a proper night's sleep. By the time I'd parked the car and come inside, he was already fast asleep on the bed, still fully dressed. I sat on the edge of the bed and gently pulled the socks from his feet, a month apart, and this was our reunion. He couldn't even stay awake long enough to talk to me. A bitter smile touched my lips. I suppose when you're so familiar with someone, you stop making an effort. I wanted to be pampered, to be held after so long apart, but he was just tired. To him, we were married. We had a lifetime to be together. What was the rush? Our different needs, our different ways of thinking, were pushing us further and further apart. Another bland, quiet evening stretched before me. It didn't matter if my husband was home or not. The loneliness was the same. The only difference was that now, I had to cook more often. I opened my laptop to start researching the HKT project. It was massive, a revolutionary breakthrough in the tech industry that promised to change the country's entire digital landscape. The project involved dozens of companies, with a budget in the billions. It was a huge challenge, but it was also the opportunity of a lifetime. If I couldn't succeed here, I probably couldn't succeed anywhere. Besides, I wanted to work for a big company, to make good money. I needed money to have a baby. I wasn't getting any younger. I couldn't postpone it any longer. You're still awake. Ethan's voice made me jump. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my neck. It's late. I just got this new project, I explained. I'm trying to get up to speed, build a plan, sleep. You can figure it out tomorrow. It's past midnight. Are you feeling better? Are you hungry? I can make you something. I'm not hungry, he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. I just want to hold you. I just want to sleep. He paused. I've missed you. The words were a balm to my guilty soul. A month away, and the first thing he does when he gets home is sleep. But now he missed me. I let him lead me to the bedroom. His touch was desperate, hungry, fueled by a month of absence. And I, driven by a profound sense of guilt, responded with a fervor that surprised even myself. Our bodies moved together, a frantic, urgent dance. But as we made love, a shocking thing happened. The face that flashed in my mind wasn't Ethan's, it was Julian's. The memory of that wild, forbidden night came rushing back, overwhelming me. They say a one-night stand is just a game, a meaningless physical release with no strings attached. But for me, it wasn't like that. The physical memory of it was branded into my mind, a phantom limb that still tingled. It was a cocktail of desire, excitement, and fear. And now, even in my husband's arms, those images were haunting me, making me shudder. And to make matters worse, that man, that ghost, was now a part of my professional life. We would have to meet, to work together. Could I maintain my composure? Could I resist the temptation of a man who was so charming, so successful, so dangerously handsome? A vague, formless dread washed over me. Ethan finished quickly, then rolled over and fell back asleep. Men are like that, aren't they? Once they're done, they're done. They don't care about your feelings, your needs. I lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. I was afraid. I was afraid that the fragile piece of my life was about to be shattered. I was afraid of the storm that I could feel brewing on the horizon, a storm that threatened to destroy everything I had. Exhausted, I finally drifted into a troubled sleep. Just as the first rays of dawn began to streak the sky, I dove into the HKT project headfirst. Work became my refuge, a place where I could silence the nagging voices of guilt and desire. I crafted a comprehensive communication strategy and presented it to the board of directors. To my immense relief, they were impressed. The plan was approved, and we were set to launch according to the timeline I had laid out. To ensure my full commitment, Marcus formally offered me the Director of Communications position, asking me to resign from my old job. He promised to make the appointment official as soon as I joined HKT full-time. It was everything I had been working towards. Without a second thought, I accepted. This was my chance to build something, to prove myself. The moment the news became official, my phone buzzed with a text. It was Julian. "Congratulations, Director. HKT is lucky to have you. Thank you," I typed back, keeping it short and professional. I could almost see his wry, enigmatic smile. He was pushing boundaries, testing the waters, but his tone was shifting. This was a signal, a small step towards a normal, professional relationship, and I had responded in kind. A strange sense of relief washed over me. "To celebrate you joining the team, let me buy you dinner tonight," his next message read. He knew what my answer would be, but he asked anyway. This time, however, I didn't reply. No angry refusal, no polite excuse, just silence. And in that silence, he found his answer. It was a step forward. I submitted my resignation at my old firm, giving them 2 weeks' notice. With my new role looming, I took a few days off to dedicate myself completely to the HKT project. I came home earlier than usual one afternoon, feeling a rare surge of domestic energy. I wanted to clean, to cook a proper meal for Ethan. It had been weeks since we'd sat down to a nice dinner together. Since he'd returned, work had consumed him again. Most nights, he came home so late I was already asleep. I felt a familiar wave of resentment, a husband who was more dedicated to his job than his family. As I walked in the door, I saw Julian's text message still on my screen. I quickly deleted it. I didn't want Ethan to see it by accident. I also didn't want to be hostile towards Julian anymore. We were going to be colleagues, after all. A cordial relationship was better than a confrontational one. He was in a position to help me, to be a valuable ally in my new career. But I would maintain my distance, a strict professional boundary. The mistake of our past would not define our future. I would not give him another opportunity to get close to me. After tidying up the apartment, I started preparing dinner. As I chopped vegetables, I sent Ethan a text. "Hey, come home early tonight. I'm making your favorite dish." His reply came almost immediately. "I'm so sorry. I was in such a rush I forgot to tell you. I'm in San Francisco." My hands stopped moving. They needed me here for an urgent matter. "I had to fly out this afternoon. You go ahead and eat. Get some rest." I stared at the phone, a cold fury rising in my chest. He was in another city and hadn't even bothered to tell me. What was I to him? Did he even see me as his wife anymore? He came and went as he pleased, without a single thought for me, for my feelings. I turned off the stove, my appetite gone. I slumped onto the sofa, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me. I picked up my phone again, my eyes falling on the empty space where Julian's message had been. I hesitated for only a moment before typing out a new one. "Okay, let's get that celebratory dinner tonight. And yes, there will be wine." His reply was instantaneous, laced with his signature playful sarcasm, not afraid of history repeating itself. A small smile touched my lips. No, I wouldn't let that happen again. But right now, in this moment, the loneliness was a physical weight. I needed to talk to someone. My friends were busy with their husbands and children. They didn't have time for my existential crises. The only person I could think of, the only person who seemed to understand the depth of my solitude, was Julian. We met at a quiet, hidden gem of a restaurant, tucked away on a cobblestone street. It was an oasis of calm in the bustling city. We ordered our food and sat opposite each other. He stared at me, an intensity in his gaze that made me shift uncomfortably in my seat. "Is there something on my face?" I asked, trying to lighten the mood. "You're looking at me like you want to eat me alive." "No," he said, his expression softening. It's been a while. I need to get a good look." "Don't start with your cheesy pickup lines," I warned, but there was no heat in my words. My friends were using those lines back in middle school. We both laughed, and the tension between us dissolved. We talked about work. I used the opportunity to ask him more about the project, about the corporate culture, about the key players involved. I wanted to understand the big picture, to refine my strategy. The conversation was easy, enjoyable. He would occasionally break the serious tone with a witty remark or a funny story, making me laugh, a genuine, unburdened laugh. We stayed until the restaurant was empty, the last patrons to leave. "Can I come with you tonight?" he asked, his voice low as we stood outside on the quiet street. "What did you say?" I snapped, my defenses immediately shooting back up. "I am not the easy woman you think I am, especially not with someone who is about to be my colleague. Never." "Of course not," he said quickly, holding up his hands in surrender. "I meant, can I drive you home?" "No, I have my own 2 feet. I can get myself home." I hailed a passing cab, my heart pounding. "Goodbye, Julian." I jumped in and gave the driver my address, leaving him standing on the sidewalk, a look of disappointment on his face. But I didn't go straight home. I told the driver to take a detour, to drive around the city for a while. I wanted to make sure he wasn't following me. It was a paranoid thought, but with him, I couldn't be too careful. Besides, it was still early. Going back to the empty apartment held no appeal. I had him drop me off at a late-night cafe overlooking the river. I sat by the window, watching the last of the city's life trickle by. Ethan still hadn't called or texted. He was a man who lived entirely within his own world, oblivious to the emotional needs of the people around him. The late autumn air in Portland was beautiful, a gentle coolness that soothed my frayed nerves. It felt like it was washing away the hurt, the loneliness that had taken root in my heart. I stared out at the dark, shimmering water, my mind a complete blank. No thoughts, no feelings, just a quiet, empty stillness. I sat like that for hours, a statue in a lonely cafe. The city grew quiet, the streets emptied. The last of the weary street vendors packed up their carts and headed home. At least they had someone waiting for them. I had no one. I could wander these streets all night, and no one would even notice I was gone. My phone buzzed. It was Julian, still awake. "You should go home and get some sleep." His message was like a gentle hand on my shoulder, pulling me back to reality. This man, he was a paradox. So frustrating, yet so thoughtful. "I'm asleep," I texted back, my tone deliberately sharp. "Don't text me so late. What if my husband sees it? I know you're home alone tonight." That's why I texted, "Go to sleep. Good night, Hazel." His swift reply made a strange warmth spread through my chest. Sometimes, all a woman needs is for a man to notice the small things. His thoughtfulness was a stark contrast to Ethan's oblivious neglect. A dangerous, forbidden desire stirred within me. If only Ethan could be like this, just a little. I paid my bill and walked out into the cool, silent night. I walked home through the empty streets. The city was asleep, but I was not. My mind was racing. Back at his farm, Julian couldn't concentrate on work. He had turned down Bella's invitation to a friend's birthday party. Even though she had pleaded with him to come, he was no longer interested in such frivolous things. Something about me had awakened a desire in him for something more. A family, a woman to truly share his life with, to love and protect. But I was married. He couldn't be the man who destroyed my marriage. And then there was Bella. He didn't feel she was wife material, but he couldn't deny the responsibility he felt towards her. His thoughts were a tangled mess. Life was so strange. You could live with someone for years and feel nothing, and then someone else could walk into your life for a single night and leave an indelible mark on your soul. We never appreciate what we have, do we? We only ever want what we can't have. It was past midnight when he heard a knock on his door. Who could possibly be here at this hour? He checked the security camera. It was Bella. She looked tired, her shoulders slumped. Probably drunk and emotional, he thought with a sigh. "Are you drunk?" he asked as he opened the door. "No, not tonight," she said, walking past him into the house. "That's a first. A birthday party with no alcohol." "I couldn't drink," she said, turning to face him. Her expression was serious, her eyes boring into his. "Because I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and suffocating. Julian stared at her, his mind reeling. "Pregnant? How? You're joking, right?" he managed to say, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. "I'm not joking, Julian. It's the truth, and it's yours." A long, heavy silence descended. "So, what are you going to do?" he finally asked, the question sounding foolish even to his own ears. "Why are you asking me that?" she retorted, her voice sharp with indignation. "I should be asking you that. This is your child too. This is just... It's a surprise," he stammered. "I don't know what to do." "You have two options," she said, her voice cold and steady. "If you see our relationship as something serious, then we get married. If you see it as just a game, then we break up, and I'll raise this child on my own. Can you give me a few days to think about it? This is sudden. It's not what I was planning." "Fine," she said, her expression softening slightly. "You can have 2 days. The decision is yours." She turned and walked towards the bedroom. "I'm going to sleep. It's late, and it's not good for the baby." She paused at the doorway. "Oh, and Julian, you should probably get me a set of keys made. It's a hassle having to bother you to open the door every time I come over." He didn't answer. The news was too much to process. Marry Bella, a woman so ambitious, so driven. She would never bring him peace. He was ambitious enough for the both of them. He needed a woman who would be his anchor, his safe harbor. And that was not Bella. But tomorrow he would have to verify her claim. If it was true, he would marry her. He would do the right thing. It wasn't what he wanted, but it was his responsibility. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Ethan wasn't on a business trip. He was sitting in the sterile, quiet office of Dr. Evelyn Reed, one of the country's leading experts in reproductive health. While he was in Japan, he had undergone a fertility test. The results were devastating. He had 0 sperm count. He couldn't have children. He had come to San Francisco for a second opinion, clinging to the desperate, fragile hope that the doctors in Japan had made a mistake. He had worked so hard his entire life to build a perfect future, a perfect family. He wasn't a man who expressed his emotions easily, but deep down, I was the most important person in his world. Everything he did, every late night at the office, every business trip, it was all for me, to give me a better life. "I'm afraid the diagnosis is correct, Mr. Hayes," Dr. Reed said, her voice gentle but firm. "Our tests confirm that you have no sperm in your ejaculate. The condition is called azoospermia, caused by testicular failure. The testes are not producing sperm. I'm afraid the chances of you conceiving a child naturally are virtually 0. Is there anything that can be done?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm very sorry, but at this time, there is no effective treatment for your condition. You could explore options at major research hospitals, perhaps even abroad, but I have to be honest with you. The chances of improvement are very slim." Ethan thanked the doctor and walked out of the clinic in a daze. His dream of being a father shattered. And what about me? I wanted a child more than anything. If he told me the truth, would I leave him? Would I find another man who could give me the one thing he couldn't? That was his greatest fear. He still believed that science could find a way, that there was a cure out there somewhere. He had to try, even if it was hopeless. He returned to his hotel room, his heart a heavy, leaden weight in his chest. He submitted a request for a leave of absence from work. He needed time to research, to find a solution, to explore every possible treatment, from Eastern medicine to cutting-edge Western science. The next afternoon, he booked a flight back to Portland. He needed to go home. Whenever he felt defeated, he sought refuge in his family, in the quiet, peaceful presence of his wife. Watching me move around the kitchen, humming softly to myself, that was his definition of peace. It had been too long since they had shared a simple, warm meal together. He decided to surprise me. He took a cab from the airport, a rare smile playing on his lips. But when he arrived home, the apartment was dark. I wasn't there. He assumed I was out with friends, since I thought he was still out of town. He pulled out his phone to call me. "Where are you?" he asked, trying to keep the disappointment out of his voice. "I'm out. I have a work thing," I replied, my voice sounding flustered. "You're home? So early? Have you eaten? I can pick something up for you." On my way home, it was a farewell party for my old company. "I'm starting a new job." "You quit your job?" he asked, a sharp edge to his voice. "Why didn't you tell me? Where are you working now?" "I'll tell you when I get home. Look, you just rest. I'll be home soon." I sounded annoyed with his questions. He could come and go as he pleased without a word, but I was expected to report my every move. It was unfair. He was being a hypocrite. Whatever, I thought. I'll just grab him a sandwich on my way home. He's not picky. Ethan lay down on the sofa, the long flight and the emotional turmoil of the last few days catching up with him. He fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. He only woke up when I gently shook him. The clock on the wall read 11 p.m. Coming home to an empty house, and then having his wife show up so late. A dark suspicion began to creep into his mind. On the nights he was away, did she stay out all night? "Why are you so late?" he asked, his voice tight with irritation. "It was a farewell party for my old company," I explained patiently. "I worked there for over 5 years. It was emotional. People wanted to go for karaoke afterwards." "Why did you quit your job? Why didn't you tell me?" "I got an offer from HKT. They want me to be their director of communications." "Why are you asking me all these questions? You never tell me where you're going or what you're doing." This was a good opportunity, so I made the decision. "I'm an adult, Ethan." He stood up and walked into the bedroom without another word, his anger a palpable force in the room. He understood that everyone needed their privacy, but a decision this big. Shouldn't she have discussed it with him? He was her husband. He felt like a stranger in his own home, an invisible man in his own wife's life. It was as if he didn't matter to me anymore. A cold, terrifying fear gripped him. Meanwhile, I was just as angry. His interrogation, his tone. He could disappear for days without a word. But the moment I did something without his permission, he was ready to lecture me. Did he see me as his wife or as his property? He needed to understand that a marriage required equality and mutual respect. We both lay in bed, backs turned to each other, a chasm of unspoken anger and resentment between us. Neither of us wanted to be the first to speak. We each stewed in our own righteous indignation, until we finally drifted off into a restless, troubled sleep. The next morning, I left for my new job before he was even awake. Ethan stayed in bed until noon, then spent the rest of the day online, staring at the doctor's report on his laptop screen. He read every word, every piece of medical jargon, desperately searching for a mistake, a loophole, some sign that this was all a terrible error. When faced with a cruel, unchangeable truth, we always try to find a reason to believe it's not real. But the more he searched, the more the cold, hard reality of his situation settled in. At Julian's house, he had spent the morning forcing Bella to take another pregnancy test. This time, while he watched, Bella was insulted. Did he really think she would lie about something like this, just to trap him into marriage? But she loved him, so she swallowed her pride and peed on the stick. Julian stared, speechless, at the 2 pink lines that appeared almost instantly. "How far along are you?" he asked, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I'm not sure. I need to go for an ultrasound to confirm, but I think maybe 2 months." "Okay," he said, his voice a dull monotone. "We'll get married next month." "That's it?" she asked, her voice trembling with disappointment. "That's your proposal? No romance? No grand gesture?" "You want a grand gesture? Fine. We'll have a huge wedding. But does it really matter? The end result is the same. We'll be living together. A big wedding. A small wedding. It's still a wedding. What matters is how we feel about each other. And how do you feel about me?" she asked, her eyes searching his for any sign of affection. "Do you love me? Do you think I would marry you if I didn't love you?" he countered, avoiding a direct answer. "Look, I wasn't happy when you told me you were pregnant, because I wasn't ready for this. But now, I'm getting ready. Let's go. I'll drive you to work." A radiant smile lit up Bella's face. This was her dream come true. Waking up together, going to work together, coming home to each other in the evening. This was the happiness she had been chasing for so long. People called her ambitious, but what woman didn't want a stable, secure life with a man who could provide for her? She felt with every fiber of her being that Julian was that man. He was her rock. He might be a bit of a wanderer, but he was not an irresponsible man. He was a good man, a man who would sacrifice for the people he cared about. She knew his heart wasn't hers yet, but the baby would be their bridge. It would be the bond that tied them together forever. Julian drove to work in a daze, a heavy sense of dread settling over him. He was 35 years old, but he had never imagined he would be getting married this year, especially not to someone like Bella. He had accepted her affection, slept with her, because her devotion was flattering. The attention he gave her was like charity, a kindness bestowed upon someone he felt was beneath him. She was fun for a fling, but not someone he wanted as a wife. But he had made a mistake, and now he had to face the consequences. A real man doesn't run from his mistakes. Still, a profound sense of loss washed over him. The end of his bachelorhood, the end of his freedom. He was now tied to Bella for life. And me, I was starting my first day at HKT, my heart filled with hope and excitement. A new position, a new chapter. I hoped this new beginning would bring success, a success that would allow me to build the family I so desperately craved. I had never been to a doctor, but I knew, deep down, that something was wrong. 3 years of trying without success was not normal. I needed money, a lot of money, to pursue my dream of becoming a mother. I was shown to my new office. It was spacious, with a large desk by a floor-to-ceiling window that offered a panoramic view of the city. A comfortable sofa was tucked into a corner for meetings or moments of quiet reflection. It was the office of my dreams. I had to thank Julian. He had given me this opportunity. I stood by the window, gazing out at the city, still in disbelief that I was the director of communications for a powerhouse like HKT. "Hello, beautiful director. May I come in?" Julian's voice startled me. He was standing in the doorway, a wry smile on his face. "Come in," I said, trying to keep my tone professional. "What brings you here?" "I was just passing by." "First day on the job?" "I wish you all the best. I hope you don't make me look bad for recommending you as an expert in your field, especially since I've never actually seen your work." "Well, thank you. From the bottom of my heart," I said, a genuine smile touching my lips. "I'll do my best not to disappoint you." "See? That change in tone. So much sweeter, so much more affectionate," he teased. "We're going to be working together now. We need to understand each other to develop a good working relationship." He paused, his expression turning serious. "I've looked at your initial plan. There are still some major issues we need to address." I felt a blush creep up my neck. He was so perceptive, noticing the subtle shift in my demeanor. But he was right. I was starting a new job, and I needed to cultivate a professional relationship with him. Our chance encounter had led to this incredible opportunity, but chance wouldn't guarantee my success. I needed his help. A truce was better than open warfare. "Yes, well, I was hoping for your guidance moving forward. This position, it's a bit overwhelming, but I'm determined to give it my all." He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "What would you think?" he said, his voice suddenly quiet. "If I told you I was getting married?" His question hit me like a punch to the gut. A hollow, aching feeling bloomed in my chest. I tried to suppress it, to rationalize it. It was a strange mix of regret and jealousy, a feeling I had no right to feel. "That's your business," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "It has nothing to do with me. Who's the lucky woman who gets to be Mrs. Julian Croft?" "You know her," he said, his eyes never leaving my face. "It doesn't matter. I just wanted to know what you thought." "I think it's a good thing," I said, my voice sounding more convincing than I felt. "You should settle down, start a family. Congratulations. Don't forget to invite me to the wedding." "Of course." He turned to leave. "I'll let you get back to work. Have a good first day, director." He was gone before I could reply. I watched him go, a strange sense of loss washing over me. So, he was getting married. Why did that make me so sad? It felt like I had lost something I never even had. But I was being selfish, wasn't I? He had never been mine. He was just a storm that had passed through my life, offering a brief respite from the suffocating heat of my loneliness. And now, the storm was gone. My first day was a whirlwind of meetings, introductions, and strategic planning sessions. I was too busy to think, too exhausted to feel. It was only at the end of the day, as I sat in my new office, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, that the weight of it all came crashing down on me. Life would be so much easier if we didn't have feelings, wouldn't it? If we could just be robots, work, go home, recharge. But we are not robots. We are messy, complicated creatures, tangled in a web of complex relationships and confusing emotions. And it is exhausting. I didn't want to go home. Ethan probably wasn't even there yet. His work always came first. I would just be returning to an empty house, to my own lonely company. I leaned my head back against the soft leather of my chair and closed my eyes, letting the twilight envelop me. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "I'm home. I cooked dinner. All your favorites. My friend is coming over." I stared at the message, stunned. Ethan. Cooked? He had never once set foot in the kitchen since we got married. What had gotten into him? Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe something had changed. A tiny seed of hope began to sprout in my heart, but even as I rushed home, a sense of unease lingered, a heavy feeling I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was about Julian getting married. I told myself not to be sad, but the feeling persisted, a dull ache in the center of my chest. Just to be safe, I stopped at a gourmet food shop and bought a few extra dishes. I didn't have much faith in Ethan's culinary skills, and with a guest coming, it was better to be prepared. When I got home, I was greeted by the sight of a beautifully set table laden with food. Ethan was still in the kitchen, meticulously arranging a platter of appetizers. "Wow," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "What's the special occasion? Did the sky fall down today?" "I took 10 days off," he said, not looking up from his task. "I was having coffee this morning and ran into an old high school buddy. Haven't seen him in almost 20 years. He's changed so much. Didn't do great in school, but now he's the CEO of a big tech company. I invited him over. I thought maybe he could help you out with your new job." "That's great," I said. "It's always good to have successful friends. Maybe you should take a page out of his book instead of working as a salaryman your whole life." "Everyone has their own path, Hazel," he said, a hint of defensiveness in his voice. "We should be happy for our friend's success, but we have to walk our own road." Just then, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, expecting to see a stranger. I opened the door, and my world stopped. Standing on my doorstep, holding a basket of fruit, was Julian. "So, this is your house," he said, his eyes wide with a surprise that mirrored my own. "Ethan is your husband. What are you doing here?" I hissed, my voice a furious whisper. "Are you trying to ruin my life?" "I didn't know this was your house," he whispered back. "I didn't know you were my friend's wife. You two know each other." Ethan's voice boomed from behind me, making us both jump. Hazel just started at a company that my brother's firm is working with," Julian said smoothly, recovering instantly. "She's part of a project I'm also invested in. We've met a few times." "Well, what a small world," Ethan exclaimed, oblivious to the thick, suffocating tension between us. "This is my old high school buddy I was telling you about, Hazel. Julian and I used to sit next to each other in class. He went to study abroad after graduation, and we lost touch. It's so good to see you again, man. You've done so well for yourself. Come in," I said, my voice flat, my body numb with shock. I felt a profound sense of dread. Julian, here, in my house. If he said anything, if he even hinted at what had happened between us, my life would be over. But there was nothing I could do. I was trapped. The dinner was excruciating. Ethan and Julian reminisced about their school days, their conversation flowing easily. Julian seemed particularly interested in how Ethan and I had met, how we had fallen in love, how we had gotten married. His questions were like tiny, sharp needles, pricking at my conscience. Why was fate so cruel? Why did my one-night stand have to be my husband's long-lost best friend? I couldn't take it anymore. Claiming I was tired, I excused myself and went to our bedroom, leaving the two of them to their drunken reunion. The following weeks were a blur. Work was all-consuming. Ethan was busy with his own projects. We were like two ships passing in the night, two ghosts haunting the same house. Julian would still come over for dinner sometimes. After the initial shock, I got used to his presence, but it was never comfortable. There was always an unspoken tension between us, an awkwardness that real friends never have. When you've shared a certain kind of intimacy with someone, it's impossible to pretend it never happened. Julian was busy planning his wedding, so his visits became less frequent. The project was also picking up speed, demanding more of his time, and I was working around the clock, losing weight, running on fumes. All I wanted to do when I got home was sleep. I was constantly exhausted. I could fall asleep anywhere, at any time, and then I noticed other changes. Small things at first, but then, the unmistakable signs, a woman's intuition. I knew something significant was happening inside my body. One morning, I bought a pregnancy test. My period was almost 2 months late. It had happened before, so I didn't want to get my hopes up. But this time felt different. I stood in the bathroom, my heart hammering against my ribs, and watched as 2 pink lines appeared on the little plastic stick. 2 lines. Tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down my face. The baby I had waited 3 long years for. It was finally here. I was going to be a mother. The first thing I did was call Ethan. "I'm pregnant, Ethan." I cried into the phone, my voice choked with emotion. "I'm pregnant." The line went silent. For a long, terrifying moment, he said nothing. And in that silence, I heard a cacophony of emotions. Joy, shock, fear, and a dark, chilling thread of suspicion. How is that possible?" he finally whispered. Ethan's stunned silence on the other end of the line was a cold splash of water on my ecstatic joy. "What do you mean, how is that possible?" I asked, a nervous laugh bubbling up. "I just took a test. Maybe we should go for an ultrasound, just to be sure. Are you certain?" he stammered. "The home tests are pretty accurate these days, Ethan," I said, a hint of impatience creeping into my voice. "But yes, an ultrasound would confirm it." "Okay, stay home today. I'll take you to the doctor." "I can't," I said, glancing at my watch. "I have too much work today. Let's go tomorrow." "All right. Well, be careful," he said, his voice distant, strange. He hung up, and I was left standing in the bathroom, a knot of confusion tightening in my stomach. I had expected him to be thrilled, to shout with joy, to rush home and sweep me into his arms. But his reaction, it was cold, detached. Ethan, meanwhile, felt like the world was crumbling around him. The moment he hung up the phone, he dialed Dr. Reed in San Francisco. "Dr. Reed, it's Ethan Hayes," he said, his voice shaking. "I have a question. For someone with my condition, what are the chances of conceiving a child? What percentage?" "Mr. Hayes," the doctor's voice was calm, clinical. "With 0 sperm count, the chance of natural conception is 0%. There are no miracles in this scenario. We would need to pursue aggressive medical intervention to even have a chance. I'm sorry. I don't want to give you false hope. We need to be realistic." "So, you're saying it's impossible for me to be the father of a child right now?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, but yes, that is correct." "Thank you, doctor." The floor beneath him seemed to drop away. The air in his lungs turned to poison. Impossible. His wife was pregnant, and it was impossible for him to be the father. The conclusion was brutal, inescapable. She had cheated on him. She had gotten pregnant by another man. He had known me since I was a freshman in college. He knew I wasn't that kind of woman. But the facts, the cold, hard, scientific facts, they didn't lie. How could he explain this? What was he supposed to do? How was he supposed to confront this earth-shattering betrayal? I, on the other hand, was floating on a cloud of pure bliss. The initial shock of Ethan's reaction faded as the reality of my pregnancy settled in. I was going to be a mother. A tiny life was growing inside me. I would pour all my love, all my energy, into this child. I spent the rest of the day in a happy haze, my web browser filled with articles on prenatal care, childbirth preparation, and parenting blogs. It was the most wonderful, magical experience of a woman's life. My life would no longer be boring and empty. This child would be my best friend, my whole world. I was so overjoyed, so consumed by this miracle, that I never once stopped to question it. Why now? Why, after 3 years of heartbreaking failure, had it happened so easily, so suddenly? To me, it was simply fate. It was meant to be. The universe had finally granted my wish. All day, a secret, happy smile played on my lips. The energy from this new life inside me was intoxicating. I rearranged my schedule and left work early. I was sure that once the initial shock wore off, Ethan would be just as happy as I was. This baby was the miracle he had been waiting for too. This would change everything. It would bring us closer, make us a real family. When I got home, Ethan was already there, the kitchen filled with the aroma of a home-cooked meal. He had prepared all my favorite dishes. I was touched. He really was changing. He was starting to care, to be the husband I always knew he could be. This baby was already working its magic. Throughout dinner, I talked non-stop about the baby. I assigned Ethan tasks. He had to come home early. He had to take care of us. He had to start reading parenting books. I painted a beautiful, idyllic picture of our future. If it's a girl, she'll be so beautiful. And if it's a boy, he'll be a genius. We'll send him to the best schools, get him the best tutors. He'll grow up to be someone important, someone respected. You're getting a little ahead of yourself, Ethan said with a weak, forced smile. Right now, your job is just to eat well and stay healthy. And if work gets too stressful, you need to take a leave of absence. Oh, work is fine now, I said breezily. Everything is running smoothly. I'll have plenty of time to take care of myself and the baby. Good, he said, his eyes avoiding mine. Your health is what's most important. The conversation, a monologue mostly from my end, continued late into the night. We went to bed, but neither of us could sleep. I was too excited, my mind buzzing with plans and dreams for our future. Ethan, on the other hand, was drowning in a silent sea of suspicion, anger, and a grief so profound it felt like a physical weight on his chest. Was the woman he trusted, the woman he loved more than life itself, really capable of such a cruel deception? Had she betrayed him and conceived a child with another man? And if she had, what was he supposed to do? Confront her, pretend he didn't know, and raise another man's child as his own? Divorce her, throwing her out while she was pregnant? Each option was a different kind of hell, because despite everything, despite the mountain of evidence against me, he still loved me, and that was the cruelest cut of all. My innocent, joyful chatter about the baby was like salt in his wounds. When had I become such a convincing liar? When had I lost all sense of shame? From the day I found out I was pregnant, I actively avoided Julian. Our interactions became strictly professional, and I always made sure to have my assistant with me during our meetings. I created an impenetrable wall between us. Our relationship, whatever it had been, was now firmly and correctly in the friend zone. Julian, for his part, was focusing on his impending fatherhood. He felt a deep sense of responsibility towards Bella. She was going to be his wife, the mother of his child. He moved her into his house so he could take better care of her. One evening, he received an unexpected call from Ethan. "Can we meet tonight? I need to talk to you about something." "Sure," Julian said, a sense of foreboding creeping over him. "What's up? You sound serious. I can't talk about it over the phone. Let's meet at the usual spot." Drinks? Julian's mind raced. Why the sudden, cryptic invitation? Had Ethan found out something? But that was impossible. Since that first night, he had been nothing but respectful. He had never crossed a line, never given Ethan any reason to be suspicious. especially not since he found out I was his best friend's wife. Maybe it was something else entirely. When he arrived at the bar, Ethan was already there, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table in front of him. He was drinking alone. Ethan wasn't a big drinker. For him to be drinking like this, it had to be about a woman. A cold knot of anxiety tightened in Julian's stomach. "What's with the mood?" Julian asked, forcing a casual tone as he slid into the booth. "Couldn't you wait for your drinking buddy to show up? You were taking too long." Ethan slurred, his eyes red-rimmed. "Had to get a head start." "So, what's going on? You look like your world is ending." Ethan poured a generous amount of whiskey into a glass and pushed it towards Julian. Then he refilled his own and downed it in one go, wincing as the fiery liquid went down. It was as if he wasn't just swallowing whiskey, he was swallowing all the bitterness and pain of his life. He looked up, his eyes locking onto Julian's. "Tell me something." "At the office. Have you noticed anything strange with my wife? With Hazel? Is she seeing anyone?" The question hit Julian like a physical blow. His face went pale. So, he did suspect something. Had he figured it out? "No," Julian said, his voice steady despite the hammering in his chest. "I'm just a business partner at her company. I don't see her that often. But I don't think there's anything unusual going on." "Why do you ask?" "Just need to get something straight," Ethan mumbled, pouring another drink. "Drink up." Julian took a hesitant sip. Ethan was clearly trying to get him drunk, to loosen his tongue. But Ethan's tolerance was no match for his. It wasn't long before Ethan was a complete mess. His head slumped on the table, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "What would you do?" he choked out, his voice thick with unshed tears. "If your wife was pregnant with another man's child?" "What are you talking about?" Julian asked, his heart sinking. "Is Hazel—" "Just answer the question," Ethan snapped. "What would you do? Would you stay silent and raise another man's kid? Or would you divorce her?" "You're drunk," Julian said gently. "Let me take you home." "I'm not drunk. I can drink more. Just let me drink." "Is something wrong between you and Hazel? You can talk to me." Julian was starting to piece it together. Ethan's strange questions, his despair. "Nothing's wrong," Ethan insisted, his words slurring together. "I'm just happy, so I'm celebrating." He continued to drink, a man on a mission of self-destruction, until he finally passed out, a limp, pathetic heap in the booth. Julian sighed, paid the bill, and half-carried, half-dragged Ethan out to his car. Back at our apartment, I was pacing the floor, my anxiety growing with every passing minute. Ethan had left without a word, and his phone was going straight to voicemail. How could he do this? I had just told him the most wonderful news of our lives, and he had just disappeared. It was almost midnight when I heard a car pull up outside, followed by Julian's voice, calling my name. My blood ran cold. What was he doing here at this hour? I ran to the door and threw it open, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anger. The sight that greeted me made me gasp. Ethan was a dead weight, draped over Julian's shoulder, completely unconscious. Julian helped me get him inside and onto the sofa. "You should take off his shoes and socks," he said, his voice low. "It's probably best to let him sleep here, in case he gets sick." He looked at me, his expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "What's going on with you two?" "He seems devastated." "Nothing's going on," I snapped, my voice sharp with denial. "He was fine this morning. He seems really upset about something. He kept asking me. He asked what I would do if my wife was pregnant with another man's child." "That's ridiculous," I retorted, my heart lurching in my chest. "There's no way." "You should go." I pushed him towards the door, not waiting for him to finish his sentence. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, my body trembling. I turned and looked at Ethan, passed out on the sofa. This was the first time I had ever seen him this drunk. He wasn't a man who drowned his sorrows in alcohol. For him to be in this state, something was terribly wrong. "Why would you do this to me?" he mumbled in his drunken stupor. "Why would you betray me like that, Hazel?" His words were a knife in my heart. How could he be so cruel? But then, a terrifying thought occurred to me. Had Julian told him something? But no, Julian was sober when he brought him home. This wasn't just drunken rambling. "You're pregnant with another man's child," he whispered, his voice cracking with pain. Tears began to stream down his face. "What are you talking about?" I screamed, a mixture of fear and rage coursing through me. "I'm sterile," he sobbed, the words tumbling out in a rush of despair. "I have no sperm. How can I have a child? And yet you're pregnant." His words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs. Sterile. He was sterile. If that was true, then the baby. This baby was the result of that one night with Julian. The room started to spin. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a drunken delusion. The tears, the raw, unfiltered pain in his voice. It was real. He was in agony. I sank to the floor, my world collapsing around me. I stared at my husband, this man who was suffering so deeply, and my heart broke. His words were not just words. They were daggers, each one piercing my soul. He drifted into a heavy, restless sleep, his face streaked with tears, still muttering my name in his dreams. I could do nothing but sit there, a silent witness to his torment. What was happening to my life? I had waited for this baby for so long, and now my miracle had become my curse, the source of my husband's unbearable pain. But why was he so convinced I had cheated on him? I don't know when I fell asleep, slumped in a chair beside him. I only woke when the morning sun streamed through the window, warm and bright on my face. Ethan was already up. He was in the kitchen, making breakfast, humming softly to himself. He was acting as if nothing had happened, as if last night was just a bad dream. "You're awake," he said, smiling at me. "Breakfast is almost ready. Why were you sleeping on the sofa? You should have gone to bed." He looked at me, a flicker of something in his eyes. "I'm sorry about last night. I was too drunk." "I've never seen you that drunk before," I said, my voice quiet. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong," he said, his smile a little too bright. "I guess I was just overjoyed." "I'm sorry." His apology, his denial, only made me more anxious. Something was terribly wrong, and he was trying to hide it from me. They say that a person's true self comes out when they're drunk. The raw, unfiltered pain I had witnessed last night. That was the truth. That was what he was really feeling. The moment I got to my office, I called Julian. "Did you say anything to my husband last night?" I demanded, not even bothering with a hello. "No, of course not. He was the one who asked me if you were cheating on him." "Why would he ask that?" "He told me he's sterile and that you're pregnant. He thinks the baby is mine." "Is it? Are you insane?" I shrieked into the phone. "My husband, he really said he's sterile." "Yes. Now if that baby is mine, you need to tell me." "You're crazy. Don't say such things. You're trying to ruin my family." I slammed the phone down, my mind a chaotic maelstrom of fear and disbelief. Was it true? Was Ethan really sterile? If he was, then I would have to divorce him. I couldn't bear to see him live with this pain, this lie, for the rest of his life. He was clearly in shock, in denial. I had to find out the truth. I raced home, my heart pounding in my chest. I tore through his office, his closet, his drawers, searching for something. I didn't know what. A clue, a piece of evidence. Finally, I found his travel backpack, the one he always took on his business trips, in a zippered side pocket, tucked inside a folder of documents. I found it. A medical report from a clinic in San Francisco. I sank to the floor, the paper trembling in my hands. I read the diagnosis: azoospermia. Prognosis: sterile. So, it was true. Everything he had said in his drunken stupor. It was the god-awful truth. He couldn't have children, which meant this baby, this miracle growing inside me, was Julian's. The realization was a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. My body felt like it was shutting down. I lay on the floor and sobbed, a storm of grief and despair tearing through me. Life was so cruel. 3 years of waiting, of hoping, of praying, only to have my one day of joy turn into a lifetime of pain and regret. I was trapped. What was I supposed to do? Pretend nothing was wrong and live with this lie, watching it slowly poison my husband, my marriage, my soul, or tell him the truth and leave. Both options were unbearable. It was a test, a trial that was too great for me to bear. Why was this happening to me? The shrill ring of my phone made me jump. It was Julian. The sight of his name on the screen filled me with a primal fear. "Where are you?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "I went to your office, but you weren't there. I was worried." "Why would you be worried about me?" I sobbed into the phone. "What's wrong, Hazel? What happened? It's none of your business. Get out of my life." I hung up and curled into a ball on the floor, letting the tears flow until there were none left. Julian, on the other hand, was filled with a growing sense of unease. Something was terribly wrong, and he had a sinking feeling that he was the cause of it. If this baby was his, he felt a pang of guilt, a sense of responsibility that was both terrifying and profound. He picked up his phone and called Ethan. "Where are you? Are you at work today?" Julian asked the moment Ethan answered. "Yeah, I'm at work," Ethan said, his voice sounding tired, strained. "Sorry about last night, man. I was a mess. Don't worry about it. We're friends. But what you said last night, was it true? About you not being able to have children?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Yeah," Ethan finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "It's true. The doctor said I have no sperm. But look, man, you have to keep this a secret. I don't want anyone to know, especially not Hazel. But she's pregnant, I know, but it doesn't matter whose it is. It's my child. It's my happiness. Okay? I gotta go. Talk to you later." He hung up, leaving Julian speechless. Ethan was in denial. He was trying to protect himself, to protect his marriage, by burying his head in the sand. But this lie would destroy them both. Julian was stunned. The baby. It was most likely his, but it could also be someone else's. Maybe I had other one-night stands. The thought sent a sharp, unexpected pang of jealousy through him. But if it was his, what was he supposed to do? He couldn't ask me to leave my husband. I didn't love him. And besides, he was engaged to Bella. She was pregnant with his child. He couldn't leave her. It was a tangled, impossible mess, and they were all caught in the middle of it. There was no happy ending here. No easy solution. Back at my apartment, I slowly picked myself up off the floor. I walked to the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. I started packing my clothes, my movements slow, robotic. I had to leave. I couldn't face him. I couldn't ask for his forgiveness, because I knew I would never receive it. and I couldn't let him sacrifice his life, his happiness, for my mistake. I would leave this house, this city, this life, and start over somewhere new. It was a difficult, heartbreaking decision, but it was the only way. It was the only way to set us both free. That evening, Ethan came home late again, the smell of alcohol clinging to him like a cheap perfume. My heart ached to see him like this, so broken, so lost. He didn't say a word, just collapsed onto the sofa and closed his eyes. He wasn't as drunk as the night before, but he was hiding. He didn't know how to face me. He couldn't pretend to be happy anymore, but he couldn't bring himself to be cruel either. He still loved me, and that was what was killing him. "Can you sit up?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We need to talk. Let's talk tomorrow. I'm too tired tonight." "I know you're awake enough to talk to me," I insisted, my voice gaining strength. "I need you to explain this." I held out the medical report. He opened his eyes, and a flash of fear, then resignation, crossed his face. "There's nothing to explain," he said, his voice flat. "The doctor wrote it all down. You're the one who needs to do the explaining." He sat up, his body trembling with a mixture of anger and grief. "Explain to me who the father of the child in your belly is." "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Sorry? Is that all you can say? You cheat on me, you get pregnant with another man's child, and then you have the audacity to flaunt your infidelity in my face. Do you have any idea how that feels, Hazel?" His eyes were filled with tears. "I know my sin is unforgivable," I said, my own tears starting to fall. "I don't expect you to forgive me. That's why. I've already filled out the papers. I held out the divorce forms. I'll leave. I'll get out of your life. I know all I can do now is apologize for the pain I've caused you." "What are you talking about? Divorce?" He looked at me, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. "Are you crazy?" "Yes, I'm crazy. I was crazy to betray you, to have a child with another man. If we stay together, we'll both be living in this misery for the rest of our lives. It's better to just end it. The pain will be sharp, but it will heal. It's better than a slow death. If anyone is leaving, it'll be me," he said, his voice rising. He snatched the divorce papers from my hand and ripped them into pieces. He staggered to his feet and headed for the door. The cool night air hit him as he stepped outside. I ran after him, grabbing him from behind, my arms wrapped tightly around his waist. "I'm sorry," I sobbed into his back. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this. I'm not worthy of being your wife." "You don't have to say anything else," he said, his voice choked with emotion. I need to be alone for a while. We both need to calm down, to think clearly before we make any decisions. I need some quiet. You should go to bed." "Okay," I whispered, "but please, don't go out." He went back into the living room, and I went to our bedroom, the sound of my own sobs echoing in the silent house. We were both trapped in this impossible, heartbreaking tragedy. Life was so cruel. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Julian. "Open the door," he said, his voice urgent. "I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Open the door, Hazel. I want to talk to you. Seriously, you're pregnant with my child. If you don't want me to tell Ethan, you'll open this door right now. Go away. I have nothing to say to you." I hung up and burst into tears. My life was a complete and utter disaster. I didn't know what to do. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "If that child is really mine, you need to let me take responsibility." "It's not your child," I typed back, my hands shaking so hard I could barely see the screen. "It's my child, only mine. Don't you ever show your face to me again." I sat down at my computer and wrote my resignation letter, emailing it to Marcus. I told him I was pregnant and needed to focus on my health. My mind was a blank slate. I couldn't see Julian again. I couldn't let him be a part of my life. I had to get away from here to build a new life for myself and my child. One mistake, one selfish, impulsive mistake, and my entire world had come crashing down. My career was gone. My marriage was on the brink of collapse, all because of my own selfishness. I was lost, exhausted, and completely, utterly hopeless. If only I could go back in time. But life doesn't work that way. I decided to write a long letter to Ethan, to tell him everything, to beg for his forgiveness, and then I would leave. I would go somewhere far away, find a simple job, and raise my child alone. I wouldn't be a burden to anyone ever again. It was my mistake, and I had to be the one to face the consequences. I was halfway through the letter when I heard the front door open. It was Ethan. He was home from work, early. "I thought you were at work," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I was," he said, his voice quiet, gentle, "but I couldn't stop thinking about you. I was worried. We should get a divorce," I sobbed, the tears starting to fall again. "I'll take care of my child on my own." "No," he said, his voice firm. "You are my wife, and that is my child. That is the only thing I know." He walked over to me and knelt down, taking my hands in his. "I can't have children. This baby. This is a gift from you to me. I won't refuse it. I don't want to lose you, Hazel, and I want this child more than anything. But it's not fair to you," I whispered, my heart aching for his generosity, his love. "What's not fair about it?" he said, a small, sad smile touching his lips. "I get to have a child. I get to watch them grow, from a tiny seed in your belly to a full-grown person. What's unfair about that?" He paused, his gaze searching mine. "But I need to know. What happened? When did you betray me?" "I didn't," I sobbed. "It wasn't an affair. It was a one-night stand with a stranger. It happened before you came back from Japan. I swear, from that day to this, I have never done anything to hurt you." I looked at him, my eyes pleading. "I want to leave. I want to get out of this city, to run away from the mess I've made." "Then wherever you go," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I'll go with you. I won't let you go through this alone, pregnant, in a strange place. You are my wife." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. "Don't cry anymore. We're not going to talk about this again. If you want to leave, we'll leave. We'll move to San Francisco. My company is opening a new office there. I can transfer." "Yes," I whispered into his chest. "I want to leave. Right now." He held me, his embrace a sanctuary of forgiveness and unconditional love. And in that moment, a wave of profound relief washed over me. It was a strange, bittersweet happiness, born from the ashes of our shared pain.